Hello, Mr. Oliver Hardy and Miss Laurel Hardy. It's so nice to meet you. I'm glad that we can get together here to discuss our recommended portfolio or our proposed portfolio as we planned. So as you can see, today's agenda starts with me engaging in a discussion with you regarding what an investor profile is and what it means to you in terms of your ability and willingness to take risk. And then my colleague here, Mr. Aditya, will discuss your goals. After that, my colleague Ms. Neha will engage in a discussion with you regarding our recommended asset allocation for you and the importance of rebalancing. After that, we will finish this meeting up with my colleague Ms. Emily finally explaining you the importance of our recommended or proposed portfolio's importance by comparing it with your current portfolio. So what is investor profile? To put it in simple words, before you start investing, it is important to understand what kind of an investor you are, which means knowing your ability and willingness to accept investment risks, to accept your investment time horizons, and to accept your investment objectives. So Mr. and Mrs. Hardy, from your questionnaire, the investment questionnaire that you filled, helped us understand what your investor profile is, which, as you can see, is aggressive growth. So what does it mean? It means that we develop a specifically tailored investment strategy for you that involves accepting high risk in return for a higher return than the standards on your portfolio. This is what your investor profile is. So now that we know that your investor profile is aggressive growth, Mr. and Mrs. Hardy, the next question is, how will this help us meet your goals and objectives? So to answer that, I'll first start by explaining what is mentioned in the slides that I'm presenting. As you can see, each of these circles represents different portfolio. And the light blue parts represents your investment in equities, which tends to be more in return, subjected to more risk. And the dark blue part represents your investment in fixed income generating securities like bonds. So as you can see, the conservative investors seems to be more focused on allocating their funds on fixed income generating securities. Whereas the moderate investor seems to have a more balanced portfolio where they have invested in fixed income generating securities as well as in equities. And finally, the aggressive investor who have allocated most of their funds in equities, which is generally for the purpose of growth. So Mr. and Mrs. Hardy, coming to your case, we know that from the investor profile that it is aggressive growth. So our recommended portfolio consists mostly of equities. My colleague here, Ms. Neha, will present that in detail to you in a minute. But before that, I'll just help you understand the importance of how this aggressive growth investor profile will help you meet your goals and objectives. So talking about aggressive growth investor profile, Mr. and Mrs. Hardy, it means you are investing more in equities, like I said before. So investing in equities means you are taking more risk. In other words, or to put it in simple terms, there is no certainty of profit when we look at it in a short time period or in a short time horizons. Say, for example, if you look at the growth of a stock in a year, it will be very volatile, subjected to a lot of differences, ups and downs. Say it must have been making up of by like 5 to 10%, and in another 2-3 months, it might be going down by 2-3% or 5%. It might vary, and there might be a lot of variables in a year. That is when you compare it with a short-term time period. But if you look at it from a larger time period, or if you just zoom out your lens and look at it from a larger perspective, consider more years into your time period, what you will eventually start noticing is these equities will be tending to grow in a certain upward direction, which means that with time you will see growth. So Mr. and Mrs. Hardy, this will be really helpful when it comes to dealing with goals or objectives which are over a long time horizons. For example, your retirement, which will happen in the next 20 to 30 years. Post secondary education for your children, which will happen in next 10 years. So these time horizons are not short term, is what we feel. So these kind of aggressive portfolio or aggressive growth investor portfolio will help you meet those goals, long term goals, in a very smooth manner. So that is why investing in equities will always be helpful to meet long term goals, whereas it might not be that helpful in meeting short term goals, because in short term time period the returns on the equity is very volatile. It can be subjected to a lot of difference, but if you look at it over a longer time period, it generally grows. So I hope the investor profile, I'm able to add some clarity to you, and please do not hesitate to reach out to me in case you have any doubts.
Let's talk about your key financial goal. The first is retirement at the age of 64. Oliver, you and Laurel want to retire when you turn 64, which gave us about 21 years to plan to make sure you have enough money to live comfortably in retirement. We will focus on your growing saving. Since investing approaches aggressive growth, we will aim for high returns mean we'll take some risks from now to grow your money faster. The second is education from Graham. You are thinking about sending Graham to a private school, but you are not sure if it is worth the cost. Private school can be expensive, and we need to balance that with your retirement goals. We will figure out how much it could cost and if it is makes sense to save for it while still making sure you are preparing for retirement. The third is L'Oreal business. L'Oreal, your business is just starting to make money, but it is not there yet. Once it's doing well, we can thinking about saving and investing for your future too. Right now, you don't have any RRSP or other investments, but we will make a plan to start that once the business is stabilized. The next is child support. Oliver, you are paying child support for your daughter from previous marriage. While it's an ongoing expense, it is manageable with your current budget. We will make sure this fits you with your overall financial plan without affecting your other goals. Last but not the least is medical consideration. Oliver's family health history and his mother's current illness. It is important to plan for unexpected medical expenses. We can look into things like health insurance or long term care insurance to make sure you are financially prepared if any health issues come in the future, you do not face any kind of problem. So these are your key financial goals. Thank you.
Now I would begin with talking about the asset allocation for our clients Oliver and Laurel Hardy. So to begin with what an asset allocation exactly is, here we are dividing the portfolio of the client into various asset classes. So this is done looking at the investor's profile, the risk that he's willing to take, and the goals that we want to stick to for our client. So now talking about the asset allocation that we have made for our client, as you can see on the left side, we have the recommended asset allocation, and it includes the US index at 20%, followed by the broad market index at 20%, the Nasdaq at 20, the international index at 15%, the emerging markets at 15%, and the European index again at 10%. So this is the recommended asset allocation we have for you, and we also have the old asset allocation. Now I would begin with talking about the asset allocation for our clients Oliver and Laurel Hardy. So to begin with what an asset allocation exactly is, here we are dividing the portfolio of the client into various asset classes. So this is done looking at the investor's profile, the risk that he's willing to take, and the goals that we want to stick to for our client. So now talking about the asset allocation that we have made for our client, as you can see on the left side, we have the recommended asset allocation, and it includes the US index at 20%, followed by the broad market index at 20%, the Nasdaq at 20, international index at 15%, the emerging markets at 15%, and the European index again at 10%. So this is the recommended asset allocation we have for you, and we also
Today, I want to walk you through the key benefits of newly recommended portfolio for Oliver and Laurel Hardy. This portfolio has been carefully designed to align with their aggressive growth objectives while maximizing long-term potential. First is aggressive growth focus. Our new strategy prioritizes equities, shifting from a bond-heavy and cash-heavy portfolio to a stock-focused one. This change boosts growth potential and aligns perfectly with aggressive growth profile. Second, market and global diversification. To reduce over-reliance on Canadian stocks, we've added U.S. funds like the CIBC U.S. Broad Market Index and the CIBC Nasdaq Index. These provide exposure to tech innovators and market leaders. Additionally, we've included the CIBC European Index and CIBC Emerging Markets Index, tapping into growth opportunities in Europe, Asia, and Latin America. Third, cost efficiency and sector diversification. The selected CIBC index funds are cost effective with lower fees that maximize your net returns over time. These funds also offer sector diversification, especially through the Nasdaq index, which focuses on high growth industries like technology. This portfolio not only targets higher growth but also adapts to current market conditions. It's designed to build wealth over the long term while maintaining a balanced global exposure. So we are here to help. Thank you for watching. Let us keep building your financial future together.